Hey, it's Max with the Guitar Center. We're here at Winter NAMM 2026, and we just stopped by the Nord booth. We're here with our friend Jacob, and we are checking out the latest generation of the Electro series, the Electro 7. Jacob, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Glad to be here.
You having a good NAMM so far?
Oh, yeah, man.
All right, so this just came out, just recently announced. Give us kind of the high level. What are people going to be excited about on this?
Sure. Some of the new things, I'll just go left to right. The organ is now from the Nord Organ 3, so that's the enhanced samples of the organ sound. You got the upgraded Rotary Leslie simulator, which sounds beautiful. It's got a bigger screen now, color screen. You can see 7 programs on the screen all at once. It's so awesome. You've got all of the upgraded piano and synth capabilities that you get from the Nord Stage 4 and the Grand 2, things like dynamic compression. You've got a dedicated envelope control now for the synth, including FM, analog, and samples, all built in. And then full effects section that you can expect, mod 1 and 2, global reverb that you can set levels for different engines there. And cool thing is you've got all these different sizes. You can get semi-weighted, or you can get this new Kawaii hammer action keybed that feels so great. Me as a pianist, I love so much.
All right, so let's go through these kind of one at a time, dig a little deeper. Let's start with the organ.
Sure.
So as you said, now inheriting the advancements from Organ 3, give us a sense, if you could just describe it for us, and then give us some playing examples of what people are going to hear differently, the qualitative differences.
Sure. Yeah, so from left to right, you've got Rotary on here. You've got 3 mic positions, X, Y, wide, and close, which will change the sort of width of that Rotary effect. If you want it to be really wide or really narrow, you have that. You can, which is really cool, you can also route the Rotary to any of the engines. So if you wanted that Leslie effect on the piano or the synth, it's right there and easy to do. Drive under that, your typical controls that you have. But this, man, I remember last year when the Organ 3 came out, the guys at Nord were telling me how much time they spent in their studio miking these amps from every perspective and really trying to capture the nuance of it. And in my opinion, it's the best sounding Rotary emulator anywhere. Sorry Hammond, but and then there's actually upgraded samples for all the organs, including the pipe organ and all that kind of stuff. I really love the B3 plus bass feature, which lets you instantly split, because you might notice you don't have the double manual. It's just the one set of drawbars, but it is physical drawbars, which is an awesome improvement. But when I go to B3 bass and I turn on keyboard split, I automatically have a preset that's just those bottom 2 drawbars, just like you'd have those 2 in the middle on a B3. So I can instantly start to it's hard to believe that's not a real B3. It's amazing.
All right, so heard a little bit of the Rotary there, heard you ramping it up to the fast speed. If you could give us, you talked about the different miking positions, just kind of give us a walkthrough so people can really hear the differences there and the improvements.
Of course. Yeah, so with the Rotary, you have just the main features. You have the drive knob to really crank it up and get it distorted. You have 3 mic positions, X, Y, wide, close, and then you have a bass wide option, which will widen that lower pedal bass. And then, of course, stop, slow, and fast for the speed. One of the best things that I love to do to demo this is just play even one note and just listen to it change from that slow to fast, starting with stop. Yeah, I have to make myself stop playing because it's so fun. Different drawbar settings, that's what's great. The older models had those buttons underneath, but now with the physical drawbars. It's really easy just to go. The mic positions, those are, more of a subtle thing to hear, but for people that really want to change that perspective, depending on how you're listening at home, you may notice it more or less, but I'll do a little bit of that. So here's the XY. Oh, here's close, wide, and XY. And you probably can really hear it when it changes speeds, you know. And if you want to get your deep purple sound, you know, you just crank the drive. You know, your Keith Emerson stuff, your loud stuff. So, yeah.
So one of the things you mentioned, it might feel like a small thing, but if you're in a gigging environment, probably not. You talked about there's some of the encoders here, the ones that have the little, the white circles on them. Yeah, they're now push encoders, right? So you don't have to use the shift button.
Exactly, yeah. So if I go to preset number 1 here, Astoria Grand. By the way, this is a newer grand piano sample that I love so much. And if I want to see what programs are coming up after that, all I got to do is press program. And now I've got a huge list of 7 programs or presets all together. On the previous models, I think you can, you know, even on the stage 4, you can see maybe 4 at a time. But now this just makes it so much easier to visualize. And that's just one of the encoders that's pressed. Also on piano, say I want to change away from that Astoria Grand, I don't have to shift click anymore. Just press this encoder. I can go choose an upright instead, click again. Now I've got all my sounds within upright. Same thing with synth. I can go through and see the categories, go through the different samples, or change to analog and FM.
All right. So it frees up a hand.
Totally. Yeah, frees up a hand, and it's just smart. You know, I mean, it's just a smart addition that makes it easier to get around.
Nice. Okay. Next, the organ, the most obvious space to move is the piano. If you want to dig into that for us a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, so the piano has some of my favorite features on it are the keyboard touch and dynamic compression. Keyboard touch, you know, it's to help make the piano work for you. So if you want it to be on heavy, you don't have to work so hard. If you put it on light, it just changes the dynamic response to your playing. Unison mode kind of widens it a bit, you know. It's kind of not the same as a detuning effect, but it just maybe adds a little bit of width to it. And then my favorite thing, dynamic compression, which instead of using the compressor plugin over here, which really is affecting it after the sound, dynamic compression brings up the lower volume information. So your front of house guy will love you because your sound is going to be a little more balanced when it comes out. So when I do like kind of softer jazz kind of stuff, I love putting it on the, you know, most extreme setting because it helps my lower velocity stuff come up.
And that's going to be all pre-effects. That's not, to your point, if you use the comp later, that's your entire signal chain, right?
Right. Where if you know, with this comp, if you hit something hard, you know, it's popping it and cutting it down. Where this, the difference, like I'll play with it off and play something kind of soft. But now if I do that again, see how that, when I play that softer chord, it was much closer to the dynamic of that stab I did. So I just love that.
And it seems like a more utilitarian function of a compressor, right? Whereas the other one's a little more sonic as well, right?
Exactly. It's kind of like there's a plugin I love to use. It's kind of an upwards compressor rather than a down. So I think of it like that. It's just bringing that lower information up higher, which I really love. And you know, surprisingly, even though this is a semi-weighted waterfall key that's really more for an organist, it's really nice playing pianos on this. It's incredibly responsive. All these keybeds have triple sensors now. The amount of expression you can get is great. And me, as you know, at my heart, will always be a pianist. I mean, I can play some stride stuff on this and feel pretty good about it, you know. I mean, you can just rip on this thing all day and not get tired. It feels really great.
Nice. All right, so the next section we want to touch on is the synth section. what are people looking for this next generation electro going to be excited about in this area?
So the big thing is you now have a dedicated envelope section where you have attack, decay, and sustain release. And what's really cool on the screen is you get this graphic feedback now. So if I say pull up a sound, let's see what I've got. That's the strings. I can press this and go pick something else. Maybe I want to go to analog, select a lead sound. And then when I change the attack, go back here, decay. And if I shift, now I can go from sustain to release. And it's just really awesome to be able to visualize that now and see the actual timings for everything you're changing. In the FM section, you have this awesome way to visualize that, all your options on the left there, and then anything you change here, FM envelope or the amp, you're getting feedback on the screen for that. So it's become very visual. It's become a much more robust synth section, that'll give people, if you just love to pull up samples and just play, your favorite string pad or synth pad, you could of course can do that. But if you want to dive into analog and FM synth, you just have more features available now.
Yeah. How many, while we're on the FM screen here, how many total algorithms do we have? Do you know?
Yeah. So we got 4 there for now. Now this could change. Again, this is still, prototype. So there will be stuff added, but we've got 4 on the left. There's 2 OP, 3 OP, 2-in-1, and 2x2. And then for each of those, you get envelope, amount, partial, and feedback control for each one.
Nice.
So that's what's there now. Yeah.
Okay. So before we move on to our effects section, if you could just give us kind of maybe an extended little demo here of your favorite synth sound.
Got it. Okay, so I've got a saw lead on the synth, I've got piano, and I split the keyboard. One great thing about Nord is you have these LEDs here that show you where your split point is. So I've got piano, synth up top, and I'm going to use the synth vibrato so that I can actually trigger that vibrato. Now, I got to say, there will be a pitch and mod wheel eventually. Maybe not on this one because there's not quite enough room, but on the 73 key models, there will be. So what you're, kind of expecting with the other Nords where you can pitch bend and do all kinds of sound morphing as you're playing, you will get that. But for now, you do at least have the synth vibrato so you can... All right, so here we go.
Nice. Sounds fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So finally, let's talk about the effects here. Some pretty significant upgrades, yeah?
Yes, significant. So again, like with all the Nord models, you have mod 1 and mod 2. So you get tremolo, pan 1 and 2, wah, ring mod. Mod 2, you get chorus, flanger, phaser, vibe, and ensemble. And those are available to put on any of the sound engines. So one great thing you have is when you have all of them on, so 3 layers, which is the max you can get, you can use FX focus to go between each. So say I want to pop on the pan on the synth. Maybe I want to add the flanger. I tweak my rate and amount. And then as I go FX focus, I'm seeing all the effects I have for each sound. So that's a really easy way to track what you're doing. One of the new effects that's in the amp sim is Suitcase, and there's this beautiful program in here, number 2, Suitcase Pan, and it's usually using the Pan 2 and this new Suitcase amp sim. I'll play a little bit for you. It's so gorgeous. And you can, that's with the drive down, but if you crank the drive, you get even a little bit more character and bite to it, you know. And tweaking that pan, you have rate and amount for both of those, so that's affecting the speed. And amounts the intensity, and then you have drive on the suitcase, amp sim. Yeah, so you can really get gritty, and you do have other amp models, of course, twin, small, suitcase, JC, and a British model that just all sound great. They color up those Rhodes sounds so beautifully.
Nice. Okay. All right. So final section, we've got delay and reverb. You want to tell us about the changes here?
Yeah. So delay is pretty standard. It's what you'll find on the Stage 4. Some of the other features that you'll get there. So you have a high pass, low pass, and band pass for that. Of course, you can set your speed, your tempo, feedback level, pretty standard there. Compressor, which I mentioned briefly, and the global reverb, which has the relatively new spring reverb, which was added to the Grand 2 and some of the others, which I really love with those Rhodes sounds. Yeah, it's just really, really pretty sound. Now, it is a global reverb, so that means that whatever reverb you pick, whether it's room, stage, hall, it's going to apply to the entire keyboard, all 3 sound engines, but you can engage layer send. So now, if I pop on the piano and I want to, dial it in maybe to 2, but then I go to the synth and I want to really crank the wet level up, now I have different reverb levels for each one. So that does give you a bit more customization.
Okay. So, I mean, looking at this, some really nice, thoughtful workflow updates, certainly some pretty major updates here, some subtle UX updates that you're going to really appreciate when you're on a gig, when you're in a studio session. Fantastic reason to upgrade if you're in the Electro family. Now, final question for you. We've been sitting next to the Stage 4 past 20 minutes or so. Probably there's going to be a group of people who are like, do I want the Stage? Do I want the Electro? How would you recommend someone make that decision?
Yeah, that's going to be tough for a lot of people because they're both great boards that have a lot of the same features. And again, if you go for the 73 key Electro 7, you also get the pitch and mod wheel, once that comes out. So, I'd say the big things are 88 keys. If you need 88, the Stage 4 is your option because that's the only one that's going to give you that. The Grand 2 also, but if you want to have the 3 sound engines, you need organs, synth, and pianos all in one instrument, and you want to have the most amount of layers and 88 keys, you got to go with the Stage 4 88. Now, if you want something a little more compact, maybe you don't need all those layers. Maybe you're okay with just being able to have one organ, piano, and synth as your maximum amount of layers, and you want something a bit more compact that's easier to take on a gig or store at home, then the Electro 7 is going to be a winner. Now, the big thing is touch as well, because the Stage 4 88 has the virtual hammer action that's been around for a while on Nords, but now the Grand 2 has a Kawai keybed, which is similar to the HP, the Electro 7 HP that has a Kawai keybed, and it does feel different. A lot of people at the show so far have asked me, what's the difference in the feeling? I think the Kawai keybeds have a bit more of a resistance to them. Maybe they're perhaps heavy. I would say they're not the heaviest in terms of all the keyboards I've ever played, but I like them personally. Some people may prefer the virtual hammer action on like the Stage 4, but I really like that Kawai. Now, if you're more of an organist or a synth person, you're probably going to love this with the waterfall keys, which is going to be more similar to the B3 style key that you get on the Nord Organ 3. And so you can get the semi-weighted waterfall keys in 61 or 73 keys. It's Nord kind of makes it hard to decide sometimes because they're such great boards, and they've upgraded every new series with things that have been added to the others. And, it's just going to be a killer. It's going to be a killer for house of worship, studios, home and commercial. It's going to be on tour, on stages all over the world. I just see it being such a hot item.
Nice. All right. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. It's great playing, great demos, great sounds. If you want to learn more about the new Nord Electro 7, head to guitarcenter.com. And for all the latest new from NAMM, stay tuned to our YouTube channel.